Hey guys, Phil here, hope you're all well. What you're looking at in front of you is my Andonstar AD407 microscope. Now what I've done is I've been doing some upgrades for this. I've had some free time. The reason for that is, you follow me on Twitter, you'll know I busted my hand in my car door like a moron. So it gave me a bit of spare time, and what I've done is I've been designing some 3D files so I can make a mount for this. I've also made a spacer for the light ring. But yeah, what I'll do now is I'll go through everything I've made for this, and what I'll do at the same time is, once I've done that, I'll release the STL files. So if you want to set up like this, you can set up your microscope, your Andonstar AD407 and the 409, because they're both identical. The only difference is the size of the screen. So yeah, what I'll do is I'll get that all set up, and then I'll show you those 3D prints that I've created to mount the microscope and the spacer for the light ring. Now what you're looking at is Blender. I use Blender to do all my CAD work. If I'm designing anything for 3D modeling, I use Blender. The reason I use Blender is because I'm a tight arse and it's free. So that's the main reason why I use Blender. But yeah, what you're looking at in front of you is the actual mounting bracket that is used to connect the mic arm to my wall. Now what I generally do before I do a project like this is I get a mental image in my head of what I want it to look like, and then what I can do is I can go into Blender and design the actual wall mounting bracket before I do it in real life. The reason for that is, if anything goes wrong, I'd rather get it wrong in this CAD design than in real life, where I'm starting to drill holes in walls. So I'd rather get it wrong here than get it on the wall and, oh, I've made a mistake and I've got to change it. And I've drilled holes in the wall and I've got dirty great big holes there that shouldn't be there because I've made a mistake. So I'd rather get it wrong here. Now this is the wall mount I came up with. Now some of you may be going, oh, this is a bit overkill, why have you got 4 brackets and not just 2 brackets? I'll explain that when I actually talk about the actual thing that I put on the wall. But I just want to go through one of those instances where I'd rather make a mistake here than in real life, and I'll show you what I actually run into. If we take a look at the actual wall bracket, so obviously this is my wall, these are the brackets, this is a piece of wood, and here's the actual mic stand connector. Now if we take a look at the wall mount, the first thing you'll notice is these brackets are offset. Now when I first had this in my head and I came to the CAD, I designed it so it was like this. And if I just move these 2 brackets like that, now some of you will know instantly the problem here, right? But I'll explain the problem straight away. If we take a look, you might be able to see the problem. So here's a piece of wood, right? These are sandwiching that piece of wood, so locked there, it's not going to move. Now if we take a look at the brackets, if we look, we've got a screw here, a screw here, a screw here. If we go on the opposite side, again we've got a screw here, a screw here, and a screw here. But if we take a look, what's going to happen when I start screwing into this wood? These brackets are aligned, so these screws are going to screw into each other when I actually make this thing. So there's a great example of, I'd rather get it wrong here than actually in real life, because if I would have done this and I drilled the holes on the wall for this, and then went to make this. I've made a big mistake, right? I've got holes in my wall that shouldn't be there, and I've knackered this up. So all I did was just come along and I simply offset these two brackets like that, so the screws wouldn't intersect with each other. But yeah, that's what I like to do, guys. I just like to design things before I actually commit and do them in real life, because like I said, I'd rather make errors here than in real life. Now again, you may be going, this is a bit overkill. What I'm going to do now is show you the final actual design. You'll see this on the wall, and then I'll explain why I had to go like this, and it's not overkill. Now you may have seen in the CAD software the actual design for this bracket I'd made to hold the Microscope mount. Now the reason it looks overkill is for one main reason. If you look where this power socket is, if you follow it vertically up, that's where the stud is. This wall is a stud wall. So if we follow from where the actual power socket is and follow it up, you can see when I mounted my electrical screwdriver, you can see I hit a stud there, so that was fine. But if you look from where this socket is to where the radiator is connected, there's a gap, because obviously this is a stud wall, this is plasterboard. So there's a stud just here, and there's a stud about here, and in between is just plasterboard. And that's why this looks overkill, because I really wanted to anchor this thing. Now if I would have hit a stud, then fair enough, I probably wouldn't have had to design this. I'd probably use one bracket if there was a stud there, but you can see there's 1, 2, 3, and there's a fourth one there, and it just holds this thing to the wall. Now the reason I didn't connect it to the actual table was obviously if I'm working and I accidentally nudge the table, the microscope's going to do this, and I don't want it to wobble. But with it connecting to the wall, I can bang this a little bit and it won't move. If I really bang it, it's going to move, because obviously the table's up against the wall. But yeah, that's the reason why this thing looks overkill is because this is a stud wall, and I'm pretty much in between studs. So I've really gone to town and made sure it's really solid. Now the great thing about this plasterboard is this house was built in the 60s, and back then plasterboard was a lot better than the crap you get now. The crap you get now is atrocious. You go in B&Q and you can just break it off. It's rubbish. Thankfully this stuff is really solid, so I know this thing is solid and it's not going to go anywhere, even though there's not a stud there. But yeah, that's the reason why this thing looks overkill. It's just because there's no stud that was there I could actually connect to. What I want to do now is just talk you through the different designs I've made for this project: the microscope mount, the spacer for the LED light ring, and here's the design I came up with for the actual microscope mount. Now what I'll do now is I'll go through some of the problems I ran into when I was designing the mount, and then obviously I ironed them out in later revisions. I think this is my third revision. I went through a prototype, then I found out some problems, then I did another one, wasn't quite happy with that one, and then I got this final one here that I'm happy with, and this is the one that will get released with the STL files. But first I'll go through some issues I had. When I first designed it, I had this back portion here a little bit shorter, but the problem with doing that was once I actually got it on, I actually found there was a knuckle, and you'll see it later in the video. So when you actually move the actual microscope on the arm, it would catch that knuckle. So the first thing I did was I made this back portion a bit longer. The next issue I ran into was, if you take a look at this center cutout here, this circular cutout, you can see there's a lip here. Now what I did was, this was originally the same all the way through, the same diameter all the way through. The problem, what happened there was, once I tightened up the actual mount around the microscope, the way you adjust the microscope's focus is through the center column, and you twist it. And once I tightened up this mount here using this thumb screw and everything, it would catch that actual adjustment, that center column adjustment. So all I did was simply come in and I just put a little relief. You can see it goes all the way around. So when you tighten this up, it doesn't catch it anymore, and it's nice and smooth. That nice smooth action you get when you focus the microscope. And the final thing I changed from the original design, like I said, I went through 3 designs, was I moved this tightening, these 2 tightening, pinching, tightening parts a little bit further back. These 2 were about, I'd say about 5 mil, a little bit further forward than they are now. But all I did was just move them back a little bit, and that gives you more play. You can move the microscope around just a little bit more, not too much more, but it does allow you to move it a little bit. And the final thing I designed for this was the actual thumb tightener here. If I move to the underside, you can see it just there. I'll explain how you put this all together later in the video. And one thing to mention here, you can see the thread here. This is a 3/8 thread. It's a very common thread for microphone stands. So if you go out and get a microphone stand and you decide to print this, it will fit it because it's a 3/8 thread. Very common microphone stand thread. So yeah, what I'll do now is I'll explain how you put this all together. So here's the finished printout. Like I said, I'll release the STL files. So if you've got an Andonstar 407 or a 409, this will fit it perfectly well. I actually went through 3 different revisions of this before I actually locked it down and was happy with the final mount. Now if we take a look at the mount, the first thing you'll see is there's an actual space for a captive nut. The reason for that is when you tighten it with this thumb tightener here, what happens is that obviously the microscope goes in this little slot here, and when you tighten it, all it does is pinch it and it will hold the microscope. I was never a fan of the original design that Andonstar made, where you've got 2 thumb screws that go in and you tighten them. I'm never a fan of that. There was no need. You just need 1 to pinch it. That's all you need, and that's what this does, is it just pinches it. Now if you're going to print this out and the thumb screw, what you're going to need is a M2.5 screw, a nut, and the actual length of the thread needs to be 20 millimeters. Now the way you get this to work is you take the thumb tightener here that you print out, you take the actual, screw that off, yeah, put that there, you take the actual screw and you screw it in, and it will screw in because I've made this here nice and tight. So all you do is you screw it in and you go to its maximum, and then it will stop, and you'll know because it won't screw in anymore. Then what you do is you take your screwdriver and you back it out. Then you take some super glue, you put it around the head, and then all you do is you screw it into its maximum again, and then you've got a nice solid thumb tightener. Now what you need to do is take the nut and you put it in its captive hole just here. Now you shouldn't have to super glue this because it's nice and tight, so it will keep it in there without you super gluing it. And then all you have to do is obviously put it through the hole just here, and then you can use this to pinch the microscope, and you'll see it start to pinch as I tighten it. I won't show you, you can see it pinching, and that's all it does, it just pinches it and keeps it nice and secure. So yeah, that's how you set that up if you want to print this mount out. So now if we take a look at the actual mount, this is the way it will go. It will screw onto the actual mic arm. Now like I said in the video, I've designed this with a 3/8 thread. That's a very common mic arm thread. 90% of mic arms have a 3/8 thread. So yeah, what I'm going to do now is I'm going to pop this on the mic arm, and then I'll show you what it looks like. As you can see, what I've done is I've connected the mic arm, the mount, and the actual microscope all up. Now if you take a look, once it's in there it can freely move. You can move it with your finger, but then if you want to lock this in position, what you can do is, if you come along, the benefits of being left-handed now guys, if you come along and you tighten this thumb screw just here like that, what you'll do is, that's locked now, that's not going to move anyway. So that's the bonus of having a thumb screw to actually lock it, it won't move. Now obviously if you want to come along again, problems, left-handed. If you want to actually unscrew it, and then obviously it moves again. Now this is not the position it will be. The way it will be is this way, like that. So it'll be there like this. So you can see you've got plenty of room there, so you miss this knuckle, or if you've got something that sticks out on your mic arm, you're going to actually miss it. Now you will butt up against that like that. There's no other way of doing that. That's the downside. But as you can see, you're not going to have your microscope like that. You can swing it that way perfectly fine, but it will butt up against that actual tightener if you go that way. But like I said, you're not going to have it facing like that. You're always going to have it facing towards you, or a little bit like that. So you've got plenty of room there. Hello. So yeah, that's the actual mount for the microscope, and like I said, it will fit the Andonstar 407, which is what this one is, and it will also fit the Andonstar 409, which is exactly the same as this. It's just got a bigger screen. Now the next item I designed was this spacer here. Now what this does is it helps you center the LED light ring onto the base of the actual microscope itself. The problem is, and you'll see this later in the video, is when you're trying to screw those spacing connections to the base of the microscope, unless you've got it dead center, it can be offset, which throws the light out a little bit. So all I've done is I've just created a spacer so it's easier to actually connect to the base of the microscope, and you'll see that later in the video. Also as well, a little tip, and I'll show you this as well, if you put some aluminium tape foil on this part here, what that will help is it will actually bounce the light back down again on the surface you're working on. So yeah, just a little spacer I designed to help with the function of the microscope, connecting it to the LED light ring. What I want to do now is explain why I created this spacer just here. It's for two reasons basically. If you take a look, you can see trying to equally adjust these screws so it fits around the microscope can be a little bit of a pain. You can get it offset like this somewhere. So that's one of the things the spacer does, is it just helps you connect to the microscope and actually center it properly. The next thing it does, you can see when I talked about it, it's got reflective aluminium foil on there. So what happens at the moment, you can see the light's being bounced down to the bench, and that light is coming back up off wherever you're working on, and some of that light is escaping through this gap here, and you can see if I put my hand there, you can see the light escaping. What this will do, this spacer as well, not just obviously helping you center the microscope because it's got that reflective foil on there, as the light is being shined down to the bench, it's bouncing back up. That aluminium foil will bounce it straight back down again on whatever you're working on. So yeah, it's got two purposes. It helps center the actual LED ring light to the microscope, but it also reflects that light that escapes back down to whatever you're working on. So once you've printed out the actual spacer for the LED light ring, this is what it will look like. Now if you want to make this 2 times better, what you can do is you can get yourself some aluminium foil tape like this and stick it to the internal part of this bit of the spacer, and then what you do is you go around and cut it out. And then in typical Blue Peter fashion, here's one I made earlier. Now before I put the LED light ring and its spacer on the microscope, I thought I'd show you it working. Now I really like it, it's very cheap. You can buy these on Amazon. In fact, what I'll do is I'll put a link in the description to everything you see in this video, so if you want to copy my setup you can do. But yeah, what I'll do is I'll turn it on and then I'll show you how you can vary the intensity. Now it gets really bright, and I don't want to look at it because otherwise I'll get a light ring in my eye, but that's full whack, and that is very bright. In fact, it's my camera's having problems with its exposure, but if I turn it down, there you go. It's a very nice cheap light ring for the Andonstar 407 or the 409 if you use this spacer. And the final thing I designed was just a simple dust cover to go over the top of the Microscope Mount, just to stop dust going into the actual hole. And the final thing was just a simple little dust cover that goes over the top of the arm mounting bracket. Sorry guys, what I want to do is show you the old piece of I was using before to hold the microscope, and it's the reason why I kept bumping it. It's the reason why I was filming and it kept doing this as I'm filming. It's moving down really slowly, and I'm like, come on dude, I can't work like this, it's a piece of shit. But here it is, this is what I used. It's a really cheap mic arm. And what I did was I took the old bracket that came with the Andonstar, the original stand, and I just butchered it and MacGyvered it, so yeah, I could utilize it and use it as an actual microscope stand. But yeah, thankfully I never have to use this again, because it was terrible. And when I say terrible, replace terrible with shit. So okay guys, there you go. Now before I wrap up the video, what I want to show you, one of the things I really like about this microscope is its working distance. You can see how small that little PCB is, and it's pretty much taking up the full screen of that image. And if I show you the working distance, if I come down here, put my ruler in there, you can see it's round about to the bottom of the light ring is 250 millimeters, which is more than enough room to work and get some really nice shots. And with this being a really nice mic arm now, you shouldn't see this when I'm actually soldering, because if you watch a few of my videos where I've used this, you'll see me knock it or every now and again, and it's because of the cheap mic arm I was using. I'd set up like this, and this would be too heavy for the mic arm, and it'd be doing this, it'd be gradually moving down like this as I'm working, and then I'd knock it and I'd be like, you son of a bitch. But you can see this one's fine. It doesn't have a problem. It's pretty, get that in the center again, it's pretty stable, keeps things really nice and steady. So yeah, what I'll do guys is I'll release the STL files for the actual mount bracket and the spacer for the light ring. So if you want to set up like mine, you can do. So yeah, there you go guys. Hope you liked the video. If you did, please give it a big thumbs up, like, comment, subscribe, all the usual stuff. And as always, I'll catch you on the next one.